Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope DrupalCon's treating you really well. It's a shame that we can't all get there together and be in person, but you know, maybe next year, maybe next year. So yeah, let me show you my slides, which is kind of important at this point. There we go. I think you should be able to see my slides now, which is a bonus. I can't see any of you, which is not so good. Let's see if I can go back here. And yes, now I can see everyone. Woohoo! Okay, so yeah, I'm going to get started. And I wanted to talk to everyone about how I've leveraged the power of contributing to open source to like really help me in my career, because I feel like we don't talk about this stuff enough. Like we always feel like people, oh, you should contribute back to open source. You should contribute back to Drupal core. You should open source all your own plugins for WordPress. You should, you know, do all of this really cool open source work. But it's not just this like thankless, selfless task, right? Contributing to open source can really, really help you in your career, both financially and otherwise. And I think it's kind of interesting to talk about that and tell my story about how I ended up being a developer evangelist for Twilio, which is the job I do now, and how contributing to open source has just been such an important part of my life. So we'll blast through this here. Let me do this. So let me just say hello. My name is Gary. My name is Gary Hockin. I'm a developer evangelist, a staff developer evangelist at Twilio. You may have heard of us with the text message and telephone, web to telephone company. So yeah, that's what I do as a job. I'm a developer evangelist, which is a really weird job that is very difficult to describe, but it involves me talking to people at events like this. I wanted to tell you my story just to hopefully inspire people, and to also to try and show you that everything you do in your career, whether that be side projects or open source outside of work, is important and can help you to keep leveling up and progressing. So yeah, this is my story. Your mileage may vary. We'll see how that works for you. But this is something that I didn't plan to do, just kind of happened. So let's take a look. Yeah, this is me right here when I was like, I think I was about 9, maybe. God, that's an old photo. And normally this is, of course, behind me on a screen rather than in a screen in front of me. So I don't get to kind of analyze the slides quite so much when we're non-remote. But yeah, this is me a long time ago. So I just wanted to say, like, to make a start, I went to university. I did a degree in university. Everything before university is largely immaterial, right? The same as everybody. I loved playing around with computers when I was young, and writing programs in BASIC and writing little games for my family and friends in BASIC. I am old, so yeah, BASIC was kind of all we had back then. But yeah, I went to university. I failed university in as much as I completely took the wrong course, right? I went to the University of Leicester in the UK, in the Midlands, and it was amazing. But unfortunately for me, the course was way too maths heavy. I'd only got an E at maths in A-level, which are the exams we take here in the UK before we go on to do a degree. But the person who was seeing me through clearing, which is what you go through if you don't hit your grades to get into university, said that you know, you'll be fine. The maths there's not that much maths in this course. You'll be absolutely fine, because of course they were short on numbers to fill the course. And so, yeah, I kind of made a mistake. So then I went back to university, which in a much closer university to me in Pontypridd in South Wales. And I failed that too. In as much as I kind of failed it, I kind of didn't really, because after 6 months, I got offered a job in my local steelworks. Yeah, I had a local steelworks, and we'll see that, doing the job I wanted to do. So it's probably worth pointing out, like, you know, where in the world this crazy accent that you can hear comes from. I live in this little tiny coastal town in South Wales in the UK. Sorry, my arrows just covered Ireland there. So it's completely tiny. I just did a quick Google to say like, oh, look, this is what you see when you Google Miami, right? This beautiful city, you know, this beautiful, beautiful Florida city. You get these beautiful skylines. And what do you do when what you see when you Google Port Talbot, which is where I'm from at the moment? Yeah, you can see it's like a steelworks kind of dominates the whole skyline, right? There's just this steelworks, and as I look out of my window now, I can see the steelworks right there. Yeah, we've got a steelworks that lives right on the doorstep, like butted right up to the houses. You can see how close it is right there, and that's obviously a two-edged sword. The first edge is it's not the most, it's not the least polluting heavy industry in the world, right? Steelworks, and they do the whole shebang there. They melt down iron ore into iron, and then they convert it into steel, and then they cast that steel into slabs and roll it into strips. So it's a huge heavy industry right on the doorstep. But kind of the bonus thing for me was that British Steel, as it was then, which when I was working there was called British Steel. I went to get a job there in 1998, 99. It was called British Steel, and then later to be called Coras, and now to be called Tata Steel, part of, I believe, an Indian company. But it was kind of cool because they have these huge computer systems and they need people to maintain them, right? And in 1998, 1999, the thing that was on everybody's lips was something called Y2K, the Y2K bug. Has anyone heard of the old Y2K bug? You can pop. I can see the chat, so you can interact while I have a drop of my tea. Beautiful. Yeah, so the Y2K bug was this this really interesting bug that was identified ahead of time, where a lot of short-sighted programmers in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way, had encoded dates as two-digit integers, right? So instead of storing that date there as 2000, it was stored as 00, right? So nobody knew what was going to happen with integer maths once the year rolled from 99 to 00. People were like, are we going to get negative numbers? How are our systems going to cope? Nobody had a clue, right? And this was built up quite a lot in the media at the time, like banks are going to lose who owns each money, planes are going to fall out of the sky, you know, your TV is going to grow arms and legs and chase you around the living room because of this Y2K bug. And the truth is that, like, none of that happened, and that was because there was a massive army of people like me, you know, checking and making sure that everything was safe and sound and was going to work correctly when that 99 finally flipped over to 2000. Yeah, it's another one of those things where people will tell you that the Y2K problem wasn't a problem and it was all media overhype. And there was some of that to some extent, but never let anyone tell you that there wasn't a problem, because there was a problem. And my job was to fix that problem. And by fix that problem, my job was largely looking at spreadsheets of circuit boards that were rudimentary process control circuit boards that had ladder logic in them. So they had rudimentary programs in them, and to check if they were year 2000 compliant. And to do that, I didn't get to get down in the code and look at what was going on. I didn't get to do any of that. I literally had to look on their websites and say, oh, okay, oh yeah, that's year 2000 compliant. I can tick that off on this huge spreadsheet. And I'll phone them up and say, can you tell me if ABC123 board is Y2K compliant, please? Yes, it is. Oh, okay, great. Tick that one off. So it was an incredibly tedious job. And so, you know, like all tedious jobs, when you get like sick of it and it's time to move on, maybe it's just me, but then I like to kind of fire up my MAME emulator and play some MAME ROMs when I should be working. And so that's what I did. I started looking for new work. Does anyone know what this MAME ROM is? What game this is? This is an old school arcade game. And this is going to be quite the tricky one. to start us off. Does anyone know? Nobody? Circus Charlie, this is called. This is a really old arcade game. So yeah, we dusted off the old MAME ROMs and we started looking for new employment. At about this exact same time, when I was part of my job working on the Y2K team, another part of my job was to try and surface a lot of the information that we see all on the plant in cheaper ways. So you can imagine the amount of data that's collected in one sort of second in a huge steelworks like that. The width of the steel at this point, the temperature here, you know, the amount of steam in the air at this point, the moisture, and it's just like there's so much data, and it's all was stored at the time in just this huge Oracle database. And we were paying £1,000 per license for the piece of software to sit on the desk of the plant managers, the team leaders, the people who really needed to see this data. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way of doing it than paying all of that money. It's only in the database. Surely we've got an intranet, if you remember an intranet, which are now back in vogue, but I guess they're like extranets now. But we had an intranet which was running on Microsoft Internet Information Server, sat there, and we had the data in the database. And I'm like, there's got to be a way to connect these two things up, right? So we can have very basic live real-time stats sat on everybody's intranet, so we don't have to pay any licenses. Anyone can look at these real-time stats. So I took a look at something called Microsoft's Active Server Pages, ASP, and this was the official logo. I love this. I love this when I came back to look, because what is Microsoft saying here is like, not only every time you try and run ASP in production, it's like rolling a dice. It's like, that is not the best logo to have. But trying to make an actual application that works and is stable is like trying to stack some dice end on end. It's like, this is the worst logo I've ever seen. But yeah, Microsoft ASP. So I don't know if anyone's used ASP, classic ASP. It's very similar, in as much as you use VB script, on the server side to interact with some databases and then render some HTML, which you sent down the wire to the browser. So very familiar to most people who will be here. You know, ASP was really, really cool, and I learned a lot from that. But then I found that I wanted to be doing some of this stuff as a hobby rather than as work. And IIS, Microsoft Internet Information Server, at the time was ridiculously expensive. Plus, you had to pay more to connect it to a database like Oracle. If you wanted to like use the out-of-the-box solution, you had to use MS SQL, which was again an incredibly expensive license, which priced the hobbyist out of the market, right? So then I found something called Personal Homepage, which is where this finally 15 minutes in, you'll suddenly go, oh, PHP. Yeah, this is what I kind of thought. I want to be able to do this for my own hobbyist websites. And this thing called PHP seems to be an open source version of ASP, right? That's what it was in my mind. They used very similar mentalities and ideas on generating HTML on the server side by interacting with the database. And so I took a look at it. Obviously free and open source. Apache was open source and PHP was open source. And so I got it running, yeah. Now we call it the PHP hypertext preprocessor, blah, 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 too much recursion, right? But back then it was called the Personal Homepage project. Awesome. And so, yeah, this is the kind of thing that I wanted to buy. And this is the genuinely one of my PHP websites from, I would guess, early 2000s. And anyone who's done any kind of online gaming for any length of time would recognize, like, this was the bang up clan page for a Counter-Strike clan back in the early 2000s, right? And that's what everybody had to do, right? It didn't matter if you were the best person at clicking on heads when you were playing Counter-Strike. All that mattered was who had the best clan homepage was the best clan, right? So we had this news system and we had our own server and blah, blah, blah. And all of this ran on PHP so that anyone could edit the news. The interesting thing about this PHP application that I built in 2000 is I had to go on the Wayback Machine. And if you don't know what the Wayback Machine is, it's like takes a snapshot of the internet at regular intervals so you can see how websites looked at the time. So I had to go on the Wayback Machine to find this. And when I looked, this was a snapshot, I believe, from January 2020. or 2021, and then like 6 months later, this is what the Wayback Machine said that website looked like. So I was like, yeah, that pretty much sums up my PHP development at the time, right? No error handling. The database appears to have just vanished, and there's no error handling. It's just this white and black page that will be familiar to a lot of people. So yeah, back in my working life, I was still playing a lot of main ROMs. I was working as a consultant at this point, because what you do when you believe that you're the world's greatest PHP developer, because you've been doing it for 6 months and you're a cocky like 20-year-old, 22-year-old, of course you start to become a consultant because you can earn more money. And I was doing horrible contracts for people. I learned a hell of a lot of money, but I was getting bored, so I decided it's back to the main ROMs. Does anyone know which game this is? Anyone have any clues? This was a famous arcade game of the early 2000s. Duke Nukem is a good guess. It's a good guess. This is one of the earliest games I ever saw in the arcades, where you had like a plastic gun attached to the cabinet to shoot the baddies with. It was called Operation Wolf. Metal Gear Slug, another good guess. Another, you kind of try, you're overthinking it. It's Operation Wolf, this was called. This was a classic video game. So yeah, I became a contractor. I really, at this point, was doing, the reason that I fell into being able to get work as a consultant or a contractor was not because I was a good developer. I was a terrible developer, but because I've quickly got a reputation for being somebody who could like get the job done with really short deadlines. I was working for a Flash agency. If you remember, if anyone remembers, of course you remember Flash games and things. You know, a lot of films and TV shows and stuff wanted these really cool Flash animations, and I was doing the PHP that generated the XML that kind of powered the dynamic part of the Flash animations. And the PHP was terrible, but they always used to give me like, can you do this in 3 weeks? I remember them phoning me up and saying, Intel, the chip manufacturer, have got this brand new promotion for their resellers, and the more money you sell of Intel products, the more rewards you get. And ultimately the main reward, if you could sell, I don't know, £1 million worth of Intel chips, I'm making the number up, then you get it. You could earn a car. And it was the path to El Dorado, and this beautiful Flash animation where the little yellow line was going up the path to El Dorado to see how far you'd gone and what prizes you'd won. But they realized 2 weeks before that the person they'd hired to do the ingestion of an Excel spreadsheet with all of the numbers on it, that person had like not done anything and hadn't told them, and they were launching in like 2 weeks. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. And it's like a lot of 20-hour days just to get the job done. But I wasn't a very good developer. I thought I was a really, really good developer at this point, but it turns out I'm an awful developer. You know, in realistic terms, I was an okay developer, in as much as if your metric was getting stuff done, which I feel like the art of I feel like the appreciation of people who can just get things done has kind of been lost somewhat in modern PHP, right? Everybody talks about all beautiful code and unit tests and, you know, all of these blah, blah, blah. And then I think the appreciation for the person who can just get something done because it has to be. These projects will live in for like 6 months. It didn't have to be the most maintainable product in the world. I was sat in my house, in my bedroom, just like virtually ingesting this data by hand using shonky scripts to get them into the database. But that was okay because this was a 6-month promotion with a limited time on it, you know. And Intel were happy with what they saw. They didn't see all the string and the duct tape and the no-nails that was holding everything together behind. So I felt like I was an okay developer. And so I went to work for a company called VIVO Digital. This is a long time ago as well. VIVO Digital were a company who were getting into the emerging digital signage market. So you can imagine how long ago that is, because digital signage is everywhere now, right? Everywhere. You go to the smallest family-run, childcare center, they've got digital signage. You go to the global branded supermarket, they got digital signage. They're up everywhere you look. And we were trying to get in to digital signage. We had a little set-top box that we were importing from China that had a browser and some JavaScript, and we were trying to use that to make digital signage that you could sort of put on the back of any TV. It was really cool for a while, but yeah, it wasn't for me. So yeah, here's an example of the website from the time. And you can see in the background there, that's the kind of digital signage we were doing. Look, I mean, I don't actually have to tell you what era it was. If you've been around the internet any length of time, you'll be able to give me a date from that style of website that was all the rage at the time. Like that website dates it beautifully. So yeah, that was what we were doing then. And the interesting thing here was that I really, really needed to solve a problem where I didn't want to have to keep, like, I wanted to be able to turn modules of code on and off so that when we were selling this product to people, these servers were going out onto site, and some people were paying for the full shebang and some people were paying for the minimal. So I wanted to be able to turn modules of code on and off in the back end. And I'm like, I can't be the only person who's ever wanted to do this in PHP. Right? I can't be. It's impossible. So I'm going to Google this and see if there's like a framework for writing modular code. Now, as Drupalistas, you will all have probably had your own epiphany into this when you've suddenly found Drupal and gone, this solves 95% of my problems, and then I only have to write the other 5%, right? This is a massive moment in anyone's career where they kind of find the thing that allows them to do their job easily. For me, it was Zen Framework, which is kind of I wouldn't like to say it's a dead project because there's a lot of Zen Framework use still. Laminast's project now, there's still massive amounts in the US, in the UK, the EU, probably not so much at the moment. But I found Zen Framework. We were using something called Zen Guard to obfuscate the code on the server so that people couldn't just like take a copy of our code and run it themselves when we were giving them the server on site. So this was an obvious choice to me. We already had a pre-existing relationship with Zen. So yeah, I took a look at the Zen Framework, and now all of a sudden I'm a framework developer, right? I'm no longer having include this at the top of every page, include db.php. I'm no longer like mixing HTML and I'm not mixing HTML and PHP anymore. I've got a discrete view layer that does my presentation for me, and I've got models that interact with the database for me. I am an amazing developer now. And yeah, realistically, I'm a terrible developer, right? This was probably when I feel like I was at my most scary as a developer, because I'm there standing on the top of the mountain, and what I didn't realize is it's a complete false peak, right? There's another huge mountain to be climbed right the other side. I only just started learning about object-oriented PHP development, which, to be fair, was fairly new at this point. It wasn't something that was, widespread and done. So it's all good. Yeah, I have so many questions that I need to answer. This is me now. I've all of a sudden realized I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, and I really, really need to find somewhere where I can get answers to these questions. So I found this wonderful channel on Freenode IRC. Anyone remember IRC? Yeah, where we used to go before Slack and Discord, and before everyone remembers IRC. It's where we used to go to hang out to get our questions answered, right? And I'm sure that I know IRC still going strong. It's an awesome protocol. It's just, it used to take me 3 weeks to get set up to get onto IRC. Yeah, IRC was so much fun, and ZF Talk on Freenode was amazing for me to get answers to my questions. And this is where the story of how we leverage the power of open source starts effectively, when I found ZF Talk on Freenode. It's like an epiphany to me. I'd always been working in companies where I was the sole developer, or I was either I was the sole developer or I was the only dedicated developer, right? There's a manager who codes, or I'd never worked with other people. I never realized that there are people out there sitting on a desk all around the world, solving the same problems I'm solving, doing the same job that I'm doing. And they're happy to talk about it and they're happy to help you. And thankfully, everybody in this room now has obviously had that epiphany. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this room. But it's just such an important thing. Like, I really make it my mission to try and to bring as many people as I can into the community. Like, when I'm at events, when I'm lucky enough to be paid to be at conferences like this one with Twilio, I'll really help. You know, if people turn up and they don't have a peer group or they don't have a community that they can hang out in when they're in work, I'm like, you know, this is a good one for you. This could be a good one for you. This is so important. We're not alone as developers. And that's a really powerful message for a lot of people. And I'd encourage you to kind of share that with people who maybe you know who are Drupal engineers who don't, you know, they're not coming to these events. They're not going to user groups. They're not hanging out in Slack or in Discord or in IRC in the places where Drupal developers hang out, because it's such an important thing to do. It was a massive realization for me, in fact, that I'm not alone. And early on in my career, a few people like really, really, really helped me. Peter Manier, Ryan Mauger would answer the most inane questions that I would ask all the time, always answer my questions without any kind of problems or without only with patience. I'd be asking questions about object-oriented PHP, thinking that I was asking questions about Zen framework, but he would still answer with patience and grace. So thank you, Ryan. Rob Allen, one of my closest friends to this day, Acrobat, again, so patient, so helpful. And Kat Reeve, who, again, amazing person who helped me so much in those early days. And these three people are friends of mine now from 15 years ago. Probably longer. Real friends. I'm meeting Rob the week after next in Scotland PHP. You know, we'll have a few beers. It'll be amazing. So yeah, I'm so lucky that I stumbled into this weird IRC channel where I could get my questions answered and made friends. Incidentally, Rob and Ryan were the people who dragged me along to the first ever PHP Southwest. Anyone from the UK? There's a really cool user group now in Bristol, PHP Southwest, and probably you can probably hang out and attend there now because it's all virtual at the moment. So yeah, they dragged me along to the first ever PHP Southwest. I am there, even though you may not recognize me. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people there, plus Ryan speaking, plus Rob behind the camera. So there were 10 of us. You could just see my big belly sticking out there. I was there, I promise. So that, you know, that was amazing. This is the first time that I'd actually met people in real life who were doing the same job as me and who could help out. And Rob and Ryan particularly were instrumental in dragging me along to go to that. I didn't want to go, and they were like, yeah, you come in. It's fine. It's only an hour and a half down the road. So yeah, meanwhile, my job at VIVO Digital, it got back to this. It got back to playing MAME ROMs because I was bored. Does anyone recognize this game? This is a lot more famous if you're an arcade game fan. I think everyone's gone to sleep, but that in the chat, that's fine. That's completely acceptable. Like, it's a long day. Ghosts and Goblins. Good job, Matt. Yes, Ghosts and Goblins. A brilliant game. One of my favorite arcades. Yeah, awesome game. So yeah, I went to work for a gaming company. This is just the weirdest thing, and I'm conscious we're running out of time, but I went to work for a gaming company called MICROCOSM Games. MICROCOSM Games were this tiny team of about 6 people working from somebody's front room in Cardiff in South Wales, who just happened to have a license to write a game on Facebook. Do you remember games on Facebook when they would like spam you constantly? John wants you to become a vampire. Click here to suck some blood. Or Andrew's a pirate and he wants you to be a pirate too. Or, you know, Mafia Wars wants you. These games are literally were just designed to spam your friends and get you to click on stuff and buy stuff. And we had a license for a reasonably big IP. I say games. Yeah, they weren't exactly games, right? We had a license for a relatively big IP. Like this small, tiny company in Cardiff had somehow had a pre-existing relationship with Tolkien's lawyers and had somehow managed to land the Lord of the Rings license for a game on Facebook. And it sounds like it sounds so impossible as to be a lie, but I swear, I promise you, that was the thing. And so we'd wanted to like rewrite. I wanted to rewrite a lot of the code that was already there when I came in as the sole PHP developer. And so I wanted to start using Zen Framework 2. And I think this is the if I could point to one massive turnaround in my career, it would be this. So there's got to be a date on here. I mean, GitHub hasn't changed that much. 11th of November 2011. I was using Zen Framework 2. Zen Framework 2 hadn't been released yet. It was a conversion of Zen Framework 1 with a rewrite and a change from underscore separated namespaces in the name to the actual PHP namespaces. And I found a bug here. And I'd never, ever made a pull request before, but this bug was affecting me, and I kept having to like update this container.php. I kept having to update this container.php file, and it was really annoying me. So I spoke to Rob Allen, and he's like, yeah, just do a pull request. And I'm like, just do a what now? Yeah, just do a pull request. Like, okay, I'll try and do a pull request. I don't know what that entails. And so, yeah, I did the code change, and then I made the pull request, and yeah, it turns out I'm amazing at pull requests, because look at this. This is the way to welcome a new contributor into the community, right? Matthew Irafini here says, reviewed, merged, and pushed. Nice commit, particularly the tests. That's the way to make people feel welcome in your community and in your project. Like, this is so cool. Incidentally, I'm part of the community review team for Laminas now, and have been for a number of years. So that's where that ended up. What I particularly like here is particularly the tests. Like, what you want to do is take a look at what this change was. So the change was, right, add in an extra character to the regular expression so that it now accepts backslash as a character. And then copying and pasting two tests from what somebody else did, because I'd never written a unit test before at this point. And then kind of tweaking it to figure out if you look what I did, I just literally copied and pasted the tests so that they worked. But you know, it still counts. I am now like an open source contributor. That after that moment, can anyone guess what I did after I got this pull request accepted? Any guesses what I did the next day, or the next day after this pull request got merged, November the 12th, 2011. Any guesses what I did? Another one. Yeah, that would have been like the really cool thing to do. I agree. But not another one. No, I didn't do another one. Yeah, thank you. Massive thank you to Matthew Irafini. Like, if his response on that first pull request hadn't been so graceful and so nice, like, what can I say? I would never have been able to do this. So yeah, what I did after the next day was I updated my CV, right? I updated my resume to say I'm a contributor to the Zen framework, because I am a contributor to the Zen framework. And you've got to remember that this is important stuff. Like, you are now a contributor to a large open source project that people are using to make money every day. If you're contributing back to Drupal, if you're contributing back to anything around the Drupal ecosystem, if you're contributing to WordPress, if you're contributing to Laravel or Symfony, if you're contributing to, you know, Monologue or Guzzle or Composer, if you're contributing to anything at all, you are now you are now gleaned as being an expert in that tool or product or library, and you should sell yourself with that. People are making money off these open source projects, and we as contributors should be entitled to be making money thanks to our contributions to these open source projects. I cannot bang that drum enough. And if you don't contribute currently, then I massively, massively, massively recommend that you give it a go. Contributing is scary. It really, really is scary. I look at it as free code reviews. That's the one way to look at it. Like, look, writing code and putting it on the internet for other people to judge is scary. Everything that you put on the internet is scary, because you have no idea who's going to be at the other end of the big fat wire that connects us all around the world, right? Everything about it is scary. But if you kind of look at it as an opportunity to learn rather than an opportunity to be ridiculed, I find that that's what gets me through it. Let me make it clear that before I gave my first pull request, excuse me, I got several friends of mine to look at the code and double, triple, quadruple check it in private before I put it publicly. And that's the truth. Like, it's free code reviews. It's free learning. It's the peers who review my code are a lot better programmers than I am. And most people want to help you to get shit merged. Most people in open source are there because you fixed a bug, you fixed it for yourself, you fixed it for everybody else in the world who uses this project. Why wouldn't you want to get that merged? Like, of course you'd want to get it merged. Most people just want to help you get that stuff merged. That's the truth. Then there's like this guy. Does anyone know Marco? Used to be the Doctrine. Used to be the Doctrine guy. I mean, so many open source projects that is impossible to talk about. Marco's my nemesis, and I say this from all genuine good fun, because Marco's one of my favorite people in the world. One of my closest friends. I play Apex Legends with him a couple of times a week. We'll probably play tonight, and Marco's amazing. But when Marco reviews your pull requests, like, you do have to ask that question: is he want to get that shit done? Because, you know, please add one scenario with an episode. Never mind. Hello, please do this. Can you? Have you done this? There's something else that's a problem. Can you do this? This isn't how config merging works. Come on, it's a two-line. Do this. Do it. Marco's watching. Marco is everywhere. Marco's watching you. You can't get a thing past him. But I take every opportunity that I have an interaction, even with Marco, where I feel like it can be nitpicky, to learn. And I take a lot of my conversations with open source contributors who are asking me to change the way that I do things. I take it offline. I'd say, have you got time for a 10-minute phone call so that we can look at this together? Because I'm not getting what you're putting down on the ticket, and maybe you think that I'm coming across as being sort of a little bit reticent to do what you're doing, and you're coming across as being a bit, overly demanding. So let's just have a quick call and figure this out, because most people don't actually want to be that kind of jerk on the internet. Most people, they've got 10 minutes to reply to tickets, and they're trying to fill as much of that time as they can. And so they just go in, oh, this is not right. Oh, I can see there's an error straight away. It's just like, people are busy and open source projects are endless. And so, yeah, it's just a little bit of empathy from both sides, I think, can help. It's free code reviews, right? It's free learning. Using the opportunity to have free learning from some of the greatest, smartest people I know is what keeps me going. Free, it's definitely free learning. Yeah. Meanwhile, these two reprobates have dragged me up to my first ever conference, which was PHP Northwest, which doesn't exist anymore, sadly. I don't know if anyone in the chat here has been to PHP Northwest or heard of it. It was an amazing conference in Manchester. So in 2012, I headed up to PHP Northwest. I met Evan Curry there, who was, wow, what a guy. This guy ended up giving me a job and looking after me in so many ways. What a guy. He's a 19-year-old at this point, who'd written the entire Zen module manager, which is the part of Zen framework that allows you to write modular code. Written it all himself. What a guy. Like, it just constantly humbled by the people I meet in this community. I met Lorna Mitchell, who's absolutely amazing. Lorna Jane, thank you so much to these people. I also gave my first Unconf talk at PHP Northwest. That's probably sounds a bit cocky, like going to your first ever conference and then giving an Unconf talk. And it was 4 or 5 thumbs up, although there were only like 6 people in there and they were all my friends, and I still only got 4 or 5 thumbs up. But I just really, when I really wanted to speak and to help other people learn what I've got. Yeah, it got to that point. Oh, do you know what? This is terrible. I don't think I remember the name of this game myself. I think it's Golden Axe. Thank you. Yes, Golden Axe. Yes. Yes, a really, really good co-op sort of fighty game. The dwarf and the human in the blue trunks and boots there are a co-op playing here, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, I joined an ad agency. Yamgo Ad Spruce, a video streaming ad company. Lots of fun. I met some really, really cool people there, and we're in out of time, so we'll gloss over that. But what the big thing was that I started to speak at conferences, and I started to get accepted at conferences. And again, the reason I say this is not show off. Look at me, I speak at conferences at all. It's that I never look at these. Look at, most of these talks here are to do with Zen Framework 2 or Zen Framework, right? And the reason I got accepted to give these talks is because I was a contributor to Zen Framework, because I've gone on to do more, a lot more open source contributions after that first one in November 2011. I did so much work on the docs, which you won't see now. It all got merged in together and flattened. But I did so much work on the Zen Framework docs because they needed some love. And then you get accepted to talk on the subject because you're a contributor to that subject and you're perceived as an expert in that subject. And let's be honest, you are an expert in that subject because you're writing, like, if you start looking at Drupal core, I'm using Drupal for obvious reasons here, and I'm not a massive, I haven't got a lot of, expertise in Drupal at all. I've used it for a few projects. But if you're hacking on Drupal core, if you're making pull requests to the core project, you know enough about Drupal to get a pull request merged. You're doing what 99% of the user base of Drupal do. You're going in to the source folder, you're going into the vendor folder, you're looking at how the code runs under the hood. And when you know how the code runs under the hood, you are an expert. That is, that's all there is to it. How many Laravel users will solve their problem by command clicking in PHP Storm into the vendor folder and looking at how the code runs and understanding how the code runs and then solving their problem rather than just like posting on Stack Overflow or whatever? So yeah, it's a big deal to me that I only got accepted for these talks because, sorry, that's a slide from Sunshine PHP that I left in. I'm an idiot. I should have deleted that. But yeah, this is really, really important. And okay, this is the crux of it. We got 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna have to gloss through the most important part. You can contribute with code, right? You can fix bugs, you can add features. Everybody loves bugs being fixed. Everybody loves features being added. Amazing way to do it. You can add docs. Like, I made my name in the open source community doing docs. I don't do that anymore, mainly because my patience ran out. But the people who improve docs are doing the best work of all. Like, honestly, triage, like just taking tickets that are opened, issues that are opened, and saying, yeah, I reproduced this, or no, I couldn't reproduce this, is so useful. Writing tests, oh my God, they are so useful. Writing tests that can replicate bugs. The person who comes to fix the bug will love you if you've written it. If you've taken an issue report, written a test so they can fix the bug, they love you. Writing answers on things like Stack Overflow, writing blog posts, like contributing to a project makes you learn how the project works under the hood. And that is why contributing to open source means you can earn more money. Because knowing how a project works lets you be an expert, and being an expert has a benefit on your career, including money. Contributing to open source should be equal to money or dollars. And I like money. I like money and I like contributing to open source. So why can't we admit the fact that contributing to open source makes you a better developer on the programming language that you're contributing to? And I think we've run out of time, but I really, really, really like contributing makes connections with other contributors. They have value to your employer. The connections you make inside of the Drupal community have value to your employer. I like money. I like being able to say to my employer, I don't know everything there is to know about Proxy Manager, but I know Marco who wrote Proxy Manager. I can ask him anytime, and you will have those connections from being at these events that you can exploit, and you should be exploiting them to your developers, to your managers, 100%. Yeah, most importantly, Yeah, I'll move to the hallway track. Sorry, I'm running out of time. Most importantly, the connections become friendships. I joined Rove. Thank you, all these people. I joined JetBrains. Thank you, all these people. I joined Twilio now. Thank you, all those people. But yeah, really, genuinely, right? I mean, open source has changed my career massively. I'm earning more money. I'm happy to say that. I've made brilliant friends. It's improved me. And I have to say, like, thank you. We have to gloss over all this. It changed my life. And I say I encourage you to contribute to open source if you can. And if you can't, or if you don't know where to start, I'm Gary Hockin at GWH. Hit me up on Twitter. Drop me an email, ghockin@twilio.com. Hit me up. My DMs are open. I'm very happy to help anybody make their first, second, and third contributions to open source. So thank you very much for your time. Have a brilliant last day at DrupalCon, and I will catch you next time.